Jessica.
Don't stop, I haven't got there yet. Because I'm not at all nervous. Right. I'm going to read from my notes. Is this on? Hello? Can you hear me at the back? Do I need to move it closer?
We can hear you.
Can you?
Yeah.
I mean, normally you can hear me anyway. RJ Scott, thank you ever so much for having us at this meet. It's been an experience. It's been really good fun. We've had some lovely days in Munich. It's a beautiful country. And the food has just been wow. It's very good. You've kind of ticked all my boxes. Food and the wine's been good as well. Not that I've had much of the wine. So, well, not really. So I've done some planning for this speech. When they said, would you like to do it, I went straight onto Google. How do I give a speech? Yeah? And that tells you, oh, amazing things. I'm supposed to stare at someone, TJ. It was right in front of me. So this is me staring. Maintaining eye contact, PowerPoint presentation. I've got a 93-slide PowerPoint presentation that I'll be starting in a minute.
That moves on to death by PowerPoint.
The first bit of this, I want to read this out because I just want to get it right, because I was quite amazed by this. The original 1963 I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King never had the famous I Have a Dream part actually written into it. And what happened was that he had said this before, and people in the crowd started calling out, well, what about your dream? What about your dream? And that's when he ad-libbed and added on the bit about the dream, which was less scripted and more from his heart. So, I mean, I was kind of shocked by that, but with me, I mean, I've got notes, but I'll probably wander off around the corner, so I'm not as polished as Andrew, hard act to follow. So I'm not that brave, so I've got some cards to keep me on track. The research revealed that I need to have one message in my speech. Pride. Awesome. One message. My message, I guess, because what with everything that's happening in America and hopefully the rest of the world will soon follow, is that love is love and everyone is entitled to their own happy ever after. And that's basically the message that I want to give in all my books. All my books have a happy ever after. Yes, I appreciate that The Only Easy Day had a happy for now, but I did write Worlds Collide to fix that. So, the message that love is love and the happy ever after has driven every single word that I've ever written. I've always been a romance fan, way back from when my Auntie Olive, God bless her, gave me my first Mills and Boon at the age of 13. It was a Janet Daly book, and it was about this kind of stupid woman who ended up on a safari with a big strong man who threw her around a lot and didn't like her, but I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Anyway, I then went through every single Mills and Boon I could find. I moved on to something we have in the UK called Silhouette, which I think is another part of Mills and Boon in the US, and I had it all. I had seals and cops and cowboys and Texas and Montana and all these wonderful countries that you didn't really hear about in the wilds of England. Oh, sorry, just outside London. So when I started writing this speech, I thought about the kinds of things I would like to ask an author, and maybe I can answer things before you even ask me, and then you don't have to think of questions, and yay, it's good for you. So I fangirled Jordan Hawke. Oh my god, Jordan Hawke. Who's met Jordan Hawke? Who's read Jordan Hawke? Oh my god. Her worlds, her world building, her language, her lovely husband in his long leather coat. It's all good stuff. He's got long hair as well. Nice. And then Marie Sexton, the first book, oh Christ, what's the first book in the Coda series called? Is, like, to me, the most perfect book ever written. It's just absolutely perfect. And, of course, Ellie Easton, who's a new I love her to bits. I love every word she writes, and luckily I get to see her latest book that is coming out with Dream Spinner at Christmas. I've already read it. Sorry, Dream Spinner. But I won't tell anybody. Well, in the end, KJ Charles once spoke about at UK Meet was the shape of a story. If I wrote a story and there was a beginning and these two guys, because you know there's always two guys in a story, there's an MM story, and they meet and they like each other straight away, and maybe one of them doesn't really like one as much, and there's a few problems, but they fall in love, and then they get married and they have kids, and oh, the end. Well, that's not exactly going to be a very engaging book. So she explained that the story has to have a shape, and I didn't realise I was already doing that, and I think all the authors in here already realised that. I just hadn't had a name to it. So something like The Heart of Texas, which is probably a bad example, okay, because that's got ups and downs like nobody's business. But you've got a book and they start off and then you've got an angsty moment and something stops them from being together, or there's prejudice, or there's, like in Decisions We Make, where there's bullying and they're young, so they've got to grow up before they can really realise how they feel. There's always got to be a shape to the story so that you keep the interest. So I was going to look at the shape of my life and how it's affected my writing. I hope this isn't boring, I do apologise. In books, I started really, really young as a reader. I'm sure everybody in here did. We're all readers. I read voraciously. I cannot, I mean, if I'm at a table, it's a sauce bottle. I am that bad at reading. I just have to be reading. Or if I can't read anything, I doodle. You'll notice I draw. Not very good, but I doodle shapes and things. My brain's always on the go. The first books I remember reading that really inspired me, and I didn't realise I liked MM, I'm late to this, was Enid Blyton, the famous 5 books. Has anybody? Yeah, Enid Blyton. Enid Blyton for the win. Yeah.
We don't even have them in Dutch.
Oh, there you go. Now they were like typical English nonsense, but they were adventures, and oh my god, they were heroes. And there was one when the unfortunately named Dick, out of famous life, was hit by a door, and he was bleeding. He had blood coming from his head, and Julian, his older brother, was like, "Oh, Dick, you're going to be okay." He's like, "I'm fine. I'm fine, don't fuss, I'm fine." Oh my god, you know, I was 7. I'm reading this. And this Dick is like, he's like my hero. He's like this most amazing, brave man with blood pouring from his head. I mean, he's probably 10. But he's a hero. Then we had the Narnia stories. Oh, the Narnia stories. I read those over and over and over again. Princes and heroes and magic. You'll notice I didn't mention the girls. Princes, Prince Caspian, and heroes and magic and happy ever after, even though the path to the happy ever after was sometimes really stony. I mean, with Julian and Dick, there was very much, you knew that it was going to be fun. Oh yes, oh my god, there's the bad guys, there's Smuggler Bill or Smuggler Bob. But at the end, there was going to be a happy ever after. Then at the age of 12, being quite precocious, I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, from cover to cover, including all the appendices, you know. Didn't understand a word. But what I did is I had an image in my head that the words created, and I fell in love with 2 characters. With Strider, because, oh, come on! And didn't they pick the perfect guy for the films? I mean, not out with his beard, but with his beard, oh, nice. But I also fell in love with Sam. And the reason I fell in love with Sam, even though the description has him as this high with big fairy? Big, sorry, Freudian slip. Furry slip. Can you rewind that? Even though he had fairy feet and wasn't exactly physically appealing, I didn't read that. I ignored that. He was a goddamn hero. He was the one that got Frodo to the top of that mountain. And you know, they caught that in the films. And that's one of the things I really loved. And then there's TV. What inspires me on TV? Well, The Professionals. Now, English people in here? Oh yeah. Be still my beating heart, Martin Shaw and the hair. But The Professionals, Bodie and Doyle, was like the UK version of Starsky and Hutch. Yeah, so you had like the wisecracking, loose-hipped kind of guy and the stoic ex-SAS type guy. He was boring. I liked Doyle better. Yeah. You were either, actually, that's the first time I noticed, you were either a Bodie girl or a Doyle girl. So that's Bodie. Doyle. But like Starsky and Hutch, they would do anything for each other. Oh my God, they would die for each other. They would take a bullet for each other. They had a brotherly love that went beyond just being friends. They were part of each other's lives. If one was having a down day, the other one would be there, and they were heroic, and it was wonderful. And there were all these cars, Capris, Steve? Capris, going through cardboard boxes down alleyways. It was fun stuff. And then we had something that some of you may not know, but some of you may know as manga, Battle of the Planets. Well, it used to be it was a Japanese comic. Cartoon. And it was made into a cartoon and dubbed in English. And it had two guys in it, Mark and Jason. And Mark was the leader of the fearless gang of people. And I couldn't think of another word. And Jason was the rebel who was the second in command. And again, they would do anything for each other. They were closer than brothers. They would sacrifice. I mean, one of them was, I'll go into the nuclear reactor, don't worry, I'll be fine. And then, original Battlestar Galactica. That was, thank you. Not any of these pretend copies, but original Battlestar Galactica. Was when I first, Apollo. No, I bucked the trend. Again, this was more like Battle of the Planets. It was all about self-sacrifice, and it was about, I'll die for you, I'll go out in my Viper and I'll die for you, that's okay. You know, as long as you're happy with Cassiopeia, who's a whore. It's fine. Anyway. So we have tragedy, we have drama, we have action, we have men really wanting to, save the women and be heroic, but not be afraid to show brotherly love and affection. I didn't realise this was all infant MM, and this was me getting, that way inclined. Anyway, so you can tell I had a theme, and then finally, and this is where I turn a page and I just say one word: supernatural. I was watching ITV2. I don't know why, I think it was on there by mistake. There was an advert on the TV, and it was of this, oh God, he's lovely, exceptionally nice looking guy, standing next to another exceptionally nice looking guy, closing the boot of a funny black car thing, and saying, and the tagline was, well, they said, oh, we've got a job to do, and those of you who watch the programme will know the episode. And the tagline was "Scary Got Sexy." Well, I managed to talk hubby into watching this series, because we stop work at 9 and we sit and we watch something together. And I got hooked. He gave up after season 2. I think he was a bit pissed off with me drooling every episode. Anyway, I mainlined season 1 and season 2, and season 3 wasn't out yet. In fact, season 3 might not have even been made, wouldn't have made it. It was that we're on to season 93 now, but that's besides the point. And I watched it, and I loved it, and I was like, oh, these are really nice guys, but I really love the stories. I want to read some more stories set in the supernatural world. So I go online, because there's this amazing new thing called the internet, and I think, oh, I'm going to go and have a look at that and see what's there, and I found something called Sinful Desire, which was this very standard forum for people to exchange stories about supernatural characters, adventures, other episodes, that kind of thing. Then I noticed that some of the drop-downs didn't make sense. One of the drop-downs says Jared, which is one of the actors, and another drop-down next to it said Jensen, and I'm thinking, well, a romance with Jared and Jensen. Well, bloody hell. I mainlined every single Sinful Desire J2. I mainlined it. Seriously, I did not put it down. You ask Steve. And I don't know what prompted me to go for Jared and Jensen, but once I was there, I was hooked. And then I thought, because I like writing, I've always been a storyteller. I've wanted to sell, clearly. I've wanted to tell stories ever since I was little. I've written fairy tales and, I once wrote a really original story about a girl who got trapped in a tower and she had really long hair, and that's how the prince climbed up. Super original. So, it's like these intriguing drop-downs, and I discovered gay romance. And I was just blown away. And from that I found LiveJournal, which, okay, for those of you younger than the age of 45, LiveJournal, I mean, it's still out there, but I'm not sure that many people use it now because it had its day, and its heyday was Harry Potter fan fiction, supernatural fan fiction. No, I didn't read Harry Potter fan fiction, okay?
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can you stop heckling me? That's Amber's job. Anyway, I made friends with people with names of people you might recognise, like Sue Brown and Lisa Worrell and Meredith Russell, who's kind of my bestie online, and Chris Quinton. And Chris Quinton was the one who said, well, why don't you try getting published? Because I'd written fan fiction. I wrote over 1 million words of fan fiction of J2, of slashing J2. I put them in an absolutely classic story which I called Sanctuary, and that was the first iteration of the Sanctuary books. Jared was a doctor, Jensen was an escaped convict, I had all the cliches in there, and oh my god, people started commenting on it. They were like, oh, this is good, where's the next one? And I booked there. 2,000, 3,000 words a day of fan fiction. It was just rolling out. I absolutely loved it. And what I wanted to do was give up being a web designer, which I'd been doing for 10 years and which was boring as hell. And I wanted to write, and I wanted to write for a living, but I had to do both of the things at the same time. Like most of us, we have the evil day job and then we have to write. So I'd be writing 3-4 hours in an evening, sat with my laptop, which is why my shoulders are completely fucked. That's besides the point as well. So I wrote in longhand the first few chapters of a romance called Sanctuary, and I posted it. I typed it up and posted it. And the very first 500 or so words was my first ever MM romance in fan fiction. My first published story was actually for DSP, Dreamspinner, sorry. I wrote a story in a couple of hours, about 2 days before it was supposed to be submitted in January 2010, so over New Year, and they took it. They took my story, and I still don't believe that anybody would take my stories to this day, because I think that's part of a writer's curse. You never really... Any day now, people are going to wake up and realise I'm crap. That's how you sometimes feel. It's a self-esteem thing. And then Oracle was taken up by Silver, followed by Moments, and then luckily one that caught everybody's imagination, which was The Christmas Throwaway. And I originally wrote the first chapter of that story for a friend who was ill, and I extended it, and for some reason it sold like Billio. It just stayed at #1 on IRE for weeks. It's a story of a young lad who just before Christmas gets thrown out of his house for being gay. It's a very simple story about a Christmas miracle, about a young cop finding him, taking him home and embracing him in his family. I mean, there's lots of messages in there that perhaps people could comment on, but generally what it's about is a Christmas spirit and hope, because I love Christmas and the idea that everybody's happy at Christmas or deserves to be happy at Christmas, that kind of thing. I actually saw some money from Silver on that one, so that was good. The shape of my writing story then has been quite positive. You know, I started a little story with Dreamspinner, Silver, got all my books back from Silver. I've been published with Totally Bound. I've got 81 published stories, 9 translations, 3 audios, huge sales on Heart of Texas and The Christmas Throwaway. I'm now a full-time author. And I have a very active Facebook presence, and I love everybody, and I share my life with everybody, so I'm really happy doing what I'm doing, and I hope that comes across in my books. My life, on the other hand, had a very different shape, and I think this is what makes me a good person to talk about character. I lost my dad very suddenly at 19, when with a heart attack. He was the same age as I am now. I hated every job I ever had. Even the web design, at first it was okay because you were being creative, but then you were stuck in an office, there was no creativity, it was all templates, there was no chance to write. Our daughter, who's nearly 19, suffered horrendous bullying at school. She was very quiet, and we actually took her out of school and homeschooled her for 2.5 years, and she's still struggling with anxiety and stress. And then, of course, our son was diagnosed with autism very, very young, at the age of 3. And that shapes my life, and I've actually written an autistic character in Max in the Texas series. I suffer from depression and anxiety, and I'm quite introverted. I know you probably don't all believe it, but this is me, this is RJ, being an act. This is Diane's underneath, absolutely shitting herself. Not literally. I guess my writing, as a result, would have a more realistic shape. So I do write people coming back from war with PTSD. I do write heroes that are flawed. I do write Riley from Texas, who was a complete shit until he met Jack, and who learned to be a better person through falling in love with Jack. But the shape of my career, I mean, my paranormal books that I wrote after the success of Throwaway, because, you know, I was king of the world, they tanked. The Heart of Texas was ridiculed by one reviewer as a soap opera, and I actually engaged with him. On Goodreads! On Goodreads! I engaged with someone. Oh, Goodreads! Whether a 1-star. You know what I mean. This was 2011, and oh God, I had friends of mine piling in, and I was horrified and humiliated, and I thought nobody's going to read Heart of Texas, but actually it seemed to do okay, so that was all right. But that was the point, never engage with reviewers, because they're not there for you, they're not there for the author, they're for the readers, and don't ever go on Goodreads. Just my word of advice. So what did I learn? Oh, and of course my publisher, who went tits up, took all my books and ran away with my money. But, you know, that's just a minor point. So what did I learn from these things? What have I learned from the shape of my story? Well, I shouldn't write paranormal stories because they suck, without knowing what I'm doing. And actually the only paranormal I will write now is with Anne Bacall, we co-author. And what we bring to a co-author, I think, balances very well, because she creates the worlds and I have the contemporary, the character and that kind of thing, and we mesh really well and we exchange, and I'm actually learning an awful lot from Anne, but don't tell her. Okay, I really shouldn't argue with reviewers. They're not for me to be reading, they're for the readers. So don't argue with the reviewers, Diane. RJ, sorry. Always know where the money is and where it's coming from and where it goes. And I shouldn't have all my eggs in one basket, so now I'm mostly self-published. We set up a publishing company called Love Lane Books when all my books came back from Silver, en masse, 20 of them. And Love Lane Books is going from strength to strength. We have a few other authors published, but we're not a huge publishing company, just friends and books that I like, that can't find another home, that kind of thing. So with the advent of marriage equality, I made this promise. God, I said, as soon as Texas passes same sex, I will write Texas 7. And I will call it Texas Wedding, and it will be the official wedding of Jack and Riley. They are married, they got married in Canada, but I wanted them to have all their family and friends and all the extended stories brought together in a final book. And I thought that would never happen. And you know what? yeah, I know. More for me. But you know, I couldn't be happier. And I've actually, in this notebook here, I have the outline, or the brief notes for what Texas 7 is going to be about. And it will have the wedding in it. And it will draw to a conclusion, Texas, which is 7 books. I don't have enough hours in the day to write everything that I want to write. I suffer that thing that all writers suffer from at one point in their lives: too many ideas, too little time. And I also have the question, where do I get my ideas from? And I look at people and I'm thinking, well, why don't you walk around all day with ideas in your head? I don't understand a life where there isn't ideas there all the time. So I'm very, very blessed, and I know that. So that's my story, really, the journey of how I got here, and thank you for listening. I just wanted to add one more thing, apart from my thanks to the organisers who have done a wonderful job and invited me. I love you all. Andrew said something very, very pertinent yesterday. He said that without Dom, he wouldn't be able to do half of what he does. He wouldn't be able to get the stories out there because he needs that support. Now, I have a man in my life who I've been married to for 23 years, and we've been together 27 now, and he does all the shopping, the cleaning, the cooking. He looks after the house, he drives our kids around, he looks after the finances for Love Lane Books, and Jesus, that's complicated with Amazon. And he's incredibly supportive of everything I do. He comes to every single con with me apart from UK Meet, which is my kind of blowout girly time. And I just wanted to say that without him I wouldn't be standing in front of you, so love you and thank you. So now
I'm the lucky one, thank you.
So now it's my turn to ask you. Do you have any questions for me?
Want some water, RJ?
Sorry?
Want some water?
I've got some. Yeah.
Any questions for RJ once he's finally calmed down a bit?
Perhaps a bit nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Any questions for RJ?
How can you prepare for a speech so entertaining?
Yeah. I was entertaining, was it? That's good. I didn't do as much preparation as I think if I prepare too much, I will just stick to the notes and you'll just have me reading. So I just spoke from the heart. I just said what I've probably said loads of crap that you didn't really need to hear, but I'm speaking from the heart. So thank you ever so much. That's a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
You shouldn't have worried.
Oh, yeah, well, it's that pesky self-esteem thing. Amber, would you like to come in and answer
would
that
like to
question?
have you. Thank you for asking. When is Texas 7 coming out?
I didn't ask!
Texas 7 will be written, I will start writing it tomorrow. I write 3,000 to 5,000 words a day. It's going to be a 70,000 word book, so you work it out for yourselves. It'll be out the end of August, I should imagine. Yeah, all being well. Yeah, at the back?
I was going to ask you what was next, which you just said.
Oh, Texas 7 is my book, my work in progress, and the next one coming out. But the actual next one coming out for me, I've got 2 books coming out. I've got book 4 in the Bodyguard series, which is Ross and Kyle's story, and that's due out in 2 weeks, I think. 2 weeks or so. Yes, that's done. And then I've got the last book in the Sapphire K series that I write with Meredith Russell, which is all about a tropical island and wonderful romances on the beach and the sun and hurricanes in this one. But that's just ignore the hurricane thing. And then obviously Texas 7 and then Sanctuary 8. And I've got it planned up to the end of next year, so...
It's on the blog.
Sorry?
It's on your blog.
It's all on my blog, yeah, rjscott.co.uk.
You're co-writing a new...
Oh yeah, I'm co-writing with Sue Brown as well. I love co-writing because I learn a lot from the people that I write with, apart from Amber. And Sue Brown and I are writing a series set in a hospital, so proper doctors and nurses, and gynecologists. Stunningly gorgeous heart surgeons. That kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of thing. And the lowly orderly who does the floors, but is actually really a very bright mathematician. Damn, I think that story's been done. So yeah, hi.
And how do you know that it's going to be a 70,000 word book?
That's really weird, I know. It might not be, it might be 65, it might be 75, but I think after 81 books, I kind of get a feel for where I want the story to go and what's going to happen in the book. And sometimes it's longer. I mean, Crooked Tree Ranch was only supposed to be sort of 50 or so, and it went up to nearly 70. The Sanctuary books, they were just supposed to be short novellas, but they seem to be getting longer with every one because I want to put more character in. And as I'm learning more and more about the writing craft, because I'm learning every day, my books change and I kind of get a handle for things, so yeah.
How do you keep everybody satisfied?
I don't,
I mean,
do
what
I?
you're-
I don't. Andrew will tell you. The emails come in and it's like, when are you going to write Sanctuary 8? This is Jan Brea. Oh yes, troublemaker. But she hassles at me for Sanctuary 8.
Like
Yeah,
one time
and you.
You also... No!
Yes.
The resident bully.
Yeah. Sanctuary...
Sometimes you have to push books back.
I do. I
know
had
with
to push
Montana.
Sanctuary 8 back because those pesky Americans passed the same-sex laws.
No,
So,
I,
you know.
no, I meant with Montana. That was supposed to be earlier.
Okay.
And also got
Yeah.
pushed back.
I'm taking, because of what happened with Silver, that's really affected the way I look at the world. Publishing. I had all my books with them, and obviously everything went tits up. We lost a load of money, blah blah blah. So I put some books were totally bound, but I'm taking all of those back. All my Ellery books are coming back to me, and as is Montana 1, which was written nearly 2 years ago now. That's coming back to me in November with new cover art and editing and extra scenes and what have you. And it'll be free to anybody who's already bought it if they send me a receipt, so that's fine. And then book 2 will be coming out in January, and book 3 will be in April time. So it's going to all be done, and because I've got the stories in my head, I just needed the time to get them down on paper.
And not lost in, not lose.
Not, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to lose my notes this time. No. Yes.
You mentioned the whole thing about too many ideas, too little time, which
Yeah.
is something we all know
Yeah.
really well. So the animal husbandry question is, how do you manage the plot on these?
Oh God. I know pretty much what books are coming out when for the next year. I've got that idea in my head, and I've got so many ideas about those books that I have a notebook and I put other details in, and sometimes those storylines make it into the books that I'm writing. I've got a whole series that I'd planned out, the Billionaires Club, which is not going to get written now until 2016 because Texas 7 has pushed its way in. But I've got all the plots, I've got the bunnies, you know, in a little cage, all ready to go, and I, you know, hopefully everything will kind of settle down and it'll be fine. Does that answer that question? Yes.
No, it just makes me feel better about that.
Yeah, I wish I could say that the minute I have an idea, I write a book about it, but I don't. I'm prolific, but you can't have 12 books. No, that's very generalistic. I can't have 12 books on a go. I have my main book that I'm writing and my couple of co-author projects.
Do you plan according to releases?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so clever now. I have software called Asana, which I use to schedule. I've just got the free version, but it's $25 if you want it monthly. No way am I paying that when I get a free version. But you can schedule your projects. So I know it's going to take me 3 weeks to write X, and then 6 weeks for editing, and I know when I want the cover art, because I write from the cover art. I like to get the cover art first, people will notice that. So that the descriptions match the cover art, because I hate it when they don't. So because I'm self-published, I've got control over that. I get Meredith to do me a cover, then I write the book. So I can tell her what I want on the cover. Like, I want a brunette and I want a blonde, and she hates it when you ask for blondes because there aren't that many blondes on stock photos. And then I will write the story from then on. So yeah, I do try and keep control of things, and I'm getting better at it. So
She loves a challenge. I asked the drag queens last week.
yes, high heels. Yeah.
Mark, you also have
Mark.
Are there plans for audiobook versions of the Texas series?
Yeah, okay, audio. I'm working on the Sanctuary series first because it was a test to see if they would sell. See, the problem with being self-published is you're taking all the costs yourself. In an audiobook, well, the narrator we use, Sean Crisden, is $250 per recorded hour. And so if you've got like a 3.5 hour book or a 4.5 hour book, which is what Easy Day was, you're talking over $1,000. And okay, I will probably, yeah, that will be covered. I've got to cover the cover art obviously as well. And when you think Texas, the heart of Texas is 87,000 words long, we've got to see how the audio market's doing before we commit to an 87,000 word book. Does that you agree? That kind of makes sense. So, but the Heart of Texas, after Sanctuary, the Heart of Texas is next. I'm going to get it put into French, Italian, probably German, having spoken to some German people in here, the translators, and I'll get it out on audio, I promise. Okay.
There was somebody else.
Julie, hi!
You're a lot younger than me, obviously.
Oh, thank you. Is that a question? Next.
Like me, I'm sure you remember. I mean, all the cultural references. That's my life, you know. So you probably remember, like I do, the times when everything was so closeted and almost
totally.
invisible. and now
Totally.
we've changed so much. How does that change your writing?
Well, I mean, I remember a programme called Are You Being Served? Now, yeah, anybody who's English will know it, and probably some of the kind of Europeans if it got spread out there. And the Americans, you probably had something the same where you had the typical gay person. Now, I can't remember his name, it was played by a guy called John Ingman. And he was...
Humphreys.
Sorry?
Mr. Humphreys.
That's it! He was so idealistically gay. It's what everybody expected a gay person to be like. And I think it actually damaged our perception of not a normal person who stands next to you in the road, perfectly normal. Oh no, they've got to mince, they've got to speak funny, they've got to make comments about Mrs. Slocum's pussy. It's just, you know, it was just like a complete, what's the word, caricature of a normal person. And that's the kind of environment I grew up in with, you know, gay. He's gay, you know. So it's a bit like that. And I mean, I didn't really come across a lot of gays until I started senior school and college, and then, you know, and it was just part of my life. And actually my daughter, the next generation, what? So what? Whereas my generation is probably the last generation that was born in the age when everything was a caricature. And I'm glad to say we've broken out of that, and we're trying to spread just, you know, everything's normal and everything's fine. It isn't a caricature. So there wasn't shows with big GLBTQ characters. There wasn't a Queer as Folk back in the 70s. It was always an aberration. It was the spy who was compromised because he was gay. You know, that kind of thing. So, you know, yeah, it has changed now, and I want to be part of that change. I think we all do. That's why we're sat here. So, yeah. Does that answer your question, Julie?
Yes.
Love you. Anything else?
Good on time. Can I have a big round of applause?
Artists will be setting up for signing. I think that probably they will sit on at the tables, and I'm not going to control that because I think they're very mature enough to do it themselves. And I don't want to speed people up like RJ and Amber, because then they come complaining we're separated. So probably you can go to the foyer or whatever, and artists can set up their rooms for here on the table for people to have things signed.
Wonderful. So good.
Was very good.
You're a natural.
Emotional.
You're a natural.
He's a natural. You make me cry. I'm still thinking.